Hello guys, my name is Kevin Okansi. I want to share a project that I've been working on. It is a bet prediction validation model. So what it does is that it focuses on one particular website, it looks at its historical data, and then it validates its future predictions. So it marks predictions that are likely to fail with a 0, and then those that are likely to succeed with a 1. I think the most impressive thing about this model is noticing false positives even with data imbalance. So once I show you the code, you get to have a sense of what I'm talking about. This tutorial or video is basically to help document my thought process and also to encourage people who want to help collab to share their ideas. Maybe they can point out things that I'm doing wrong or help me with the project. So this is the general flow of the project. I am going to scrape data from two websites, forebet.com and then Sofascore. So I'm going to clean the data, put them in the database, pull them. So this pipeline represents my training data, and then this pipeline represents my test data. And then once I have these two, I'll train and validate the models that I am going to do. I'm currently done with logistic regression, and I'm going to move forward to other models. Um, Also, a side note is that I'm using a web scraper for now, but the plan is to start using APIs once I get the hang of APIs and how to maneuver their documentation. So I'm going to move on to the code. Well, I'm going to show a slide to give you a better sense of what I'm talking about, and then we'll move on to the code. So, best prediction validation model. These are the requirements: Anaconda, Jupyter Notebook 7, Python 3.12, MySQL Workbench. So phase one deals with scraping data, cleaning, storing, extracting, and then I have several notebooks to help me focus on each model um, specifically one by one, tune, and then basically gain the best results from each model. Phase two, which I am currently working on, is using API. I'm currently researching on Spot Monk API. I also want to automate the data extraction. That is, have a schedule um, so I click a button and then it does all the process for me. I would have to transition from notebooks to Python files, and then I'm still in the planning phase and it's not yet done. Phase three would be very big. So what I want to do with phase three is to create a website that allows users to document their bet predictions. So let's say you use Betway, you have a bet slip. If you can provide that information, then the model will now be structured in a way that it's personalized to you. So it looks at your specific historical betting data, and then it suggests. So the next time you want to make a parlay, it will suggest which bets not to go for. So particularly for you, maybe you are not really good at predicting tips that are, let's say, have an odds of 1.5, but you are really good at predicting odds that are, let's say, 2.0 and above, right? So the bet would help you make sure bets, looking at your historical data, which bets have you won more? I don't know if that makes sense. And which bets have you lost more? Maybe you lose more with English Premier League and you win more with Italian. So that's the plan for phase three. I don't know if that makes sense, but yes, I've not gotten there and I'm just trying to take it slowly. Okay, so these are the two websites that I'll be working on, forbet.com and Sofascore. And this is the particular data that I want to scrape let me open up forebet.com and give you a sense of how it looks like. So forebet.com has predictions, and so the green means they won, the red means they lost. So I would like to scrape this data, Everton, Arsenal, their probability, and all this information, and then feed them into my model. Sofascore has the information for the league standings, right? It's taking a while to load. Okay, so if we go back to Forbet, it was Arsenal versus Everton. So let's say that was the last game of the season, right? So what we want to do is that we want to look at the data, the statistics for Arsenal. They won 28, they've drawn this, blah blah blah. They are really in good form, right? So looking at this stats, right, from this data, we can make a prediction that Arsenal is going to win this match, right? So that's what we are going to do. We are going to combine this information with the information here and then validate our the prediction here. So right, so they said Arsenal will win. We look at this and we look at this and then we validate. The most important thing is that we are going to be accumulating this data, right, from Forbet. So Forbet has prediction data, and then we are going to it's strictly for Forbet. Okay, so because if we go to another website, their parlays might be different. So if you are a user who is using Forbet, then it means that you are always using this information to make predictions. What are the patterns? What type of bets do Forbet usually win? Right? We want to give you that information. If the odds are, let's say, 1.3, there's a higher chance of them winning this prediction. If it's higher, then maybe not. Okay, so the model is going to look at those patterns. In the future, I would be adding extra information. So what I would basically be doing is creating my own bet prediction model. But the interesting thing about what I am planning to do later on is to help the model be personalized. So it will look at specific people and their bet patterns, just like how it's looking at for bet patterns. So imagine for bet was a user, someone who is always making. Let's say for bet was Kofi, right? And he's always saying that Arsenal has a 53% and then blah blah blah. Like he's always giving information about his bet tips, right? And the model looks at Kofi and says that okay, Kofi said Arsenal Everton to win. That would is likely. Then it looked at Brentford and it says that that is also likely, right? But then when it came here, the model suggested that no, looking at Man United on this league standing, Man United is better than Brentford. So I am going to disagree with Kofi and go against him. So that's the interesting thing about a validation model. It's good at noticing false positive, right? And that would be very interesting. So when we get there, I'll touch more on that. So the pros and cons of web scraping. As I said, in phase 2, we would be using APIs. The reason is that with bet scraping, you don't have a robust or a stable or consistent data. With APIs, you have documentation, you have people always trying to improve the API or um, making it robust. So you have reliable data every time, and it's very good. It's faster than web scraping. So with phase 2, we'll be moving on to web scraping. Okay, so let's go move on to our training and testing data. You would notice that they mirror each other. The only difference between the training data and the testing data is the full-time results. So with the training data, you made a prediction and then you can look at the results. Did I correctly guess the outcome or not? Right? With the testing data, there are matches that are yet to be played. Okay. So with the training data, you would need the previous week standings. What was the week standings before the matches were played? Okay. And the funny thing is that the testing data would end up becoming the training data after the matches are played. So once we get the full-time results, then this testing data, we add it to the training data. And over time, we are accumulating more and more fixtures in our database, which would help make the model more accurate. Moving on. So when we end up cleaning the data, we would have to transform certain information. For example, the last 5 matches, we would have to convert it from text to points per game. We would have to label the home and away teams. We have to convert them from text to numerical values, because let's say with Forebet, we will see that Man United is called Manchester United, but in Sofascore it's called Man U. So we have to have a mapping for our text and then our numerical labels, and then we have to recode this part, the X, the home, and so the home team will now become 0, the draw will become 1, the away team will become 2. You would see it here. Here it's the home team is 1 and then the away team is 2 and draw is an X. We'd have to make it numerical to help our model successfully guess the chances. This is how it would look like in the database. We would have these new columns by merging the data from forbet.com and then the data from Sofascore. Okay, so we would have extra columns representing home team stats and then extra columns representing the away team stats. So if you follow along with my project, you would end up having 2 options. Option 1 is that you would follow every process to have more control over the information you end up with. With option 1, you can change the output. So let's say I'm basically focusing on English Premier League, but if you follow option 1, right, you can change it to focus on Italian league, Spanish league, or whatever you want, right? With option 2, I'll do all the scraping and get the data for you, whilst you just import the CSV file into your SQL workbench, and then you can run the notebooks that have the models within them, right? Once you run the notebooks, you would just the notebooks automatically, once you import the CSV files and you run the notebooks, everything would work perfectly. You don't have to scrape the data yourself. I have already done that and I have them piling up in my database. So all you would have to do is run your notebooks, run your models, and then look at the results. So that's it. You would skim through the code to get a sense of what I just said.